Yes. Great. It's really special because it is overlapping the energies of what we call Purim Katan and Shushan Purim Katan. As we've said, this is a Jewish leap year, and unlike adding a day or two to February, we go full force. We add a whole extra month. The purpose of the leap year in the Jewish calendar is to realign the lunar calendar that's slipping back away from the solar calendar to match it up correctly. Why? Because of a biblical verse that Passover is supposed to be in the springtime. And if we don't every once in a while realign and add an extra month for the lunar to catch back up with the solar, what would happen is the lunar would slip further and further and further back, and Passover would be in the winter, and then Passover would be in the fall, and then Passover would be in the summer. So if God wants Passover in the spring, that simple little short verse creates a multitude of laws and very intricate calculations to keep our lunar calendar abreast with the solar one. And this is one of those years. It happens roughly every 3 years or so. And we add an entire month. We add it to the month of Adar. That is when the sages of the greatest Jewish court of 71 elders, was called the Sanhedrin, they would determine, yes, for many, many different calculations, we are saying this should be a leap year, which would mean in the times of the temple, you celebrated Purim, you're cleaning your house for Passover, and then suddenly you find out you have another month and another Purim. And you got a whole extra month to clean for Passover. So it was not known. It was, you could sort of predict when possibly, but you didn't know till the Sanhedrin decided. But nowadays we have a fixed calendar. We've had a fixed calendar for over 1900 years. So we know exactly when it is a leap year, as this year. When there is a leap year, we have the first month of Adar, which from a certain legal perspective is considered the real Adar. And then we have an extra month, the added month. But in that added month, we have the real Purim. So the real Purim is not tonight, in case you wondered if you missed out. It's in a month, but not because that next month is the real one. Many people erroneously think, oh, that proves to you that the second Adar is the real Adar and the first got added. No. The reason why we have the Purim festivities, the real Purim festivities in the second Adar, is because there's another concept in Judaism that we connect redemption to redemption. So since we have the redemption of Passover, we want to make the redemption of Purim as close to it as possible. So that's why we do Purim, the real Purim, and the real Shushan Purim in the second Adar to be exactly a month away from the redemption of Passover. We connect redemption to redemption. But even now, there is still tremendous energy to this little Purim of today, last night, today, tonight, tomorrow. It's interesting in the Shulchan, in law, this is discussed, and it's alluded to by the Ramah, the great codifier of Ashkenazic law, who alluded that we're supposed to celebrate Purim, the little Purim of last night and today, and the little, even smaller Shushan Purim of tonight, tomorrow, with a verse, Tov Lev Mishta Tamid. A good heart is always parting. And based on that, they're saying we're supposed to add something to the food of Purim Katan. And by saying the good heart is always parting, he's alluding that also Shushan Purim Katan. So tonight is the energy of both. We have the juxtaposition of...
Ты слышишь? Цирил про Пурим рассказывает, про Пурим Катан.
Purim Katan today.
Ну, слушай.
Was what?
Sorry.
I didn't hear you, Chava.
It's okay. I was just making a comment to myself. I didn't realize I'm not on mute.
Oh, okay. So Purim Katan was today. Shushan Purim Katan is tomorrow. And tonight we've got both energies because the Jewish day starts by night. So we have all the Shushan Purim Katan energies, and the day extends. So we have all the Purim Katan energy. So tonight we really have both energies. And again, as the Ramah writes, a good heart always parties. So it's definitely good to even add even more in joy. All 60 days we know is supposed to be full of joy, as we've just mentioned, that 60 times of joy should nullify any negativity as we overwhelm things with 60 times as much. So we want 60 times joy. to overwhelm any negative energy and completely wash it away. But especially these days, it's nice to mark it. I cooked supper tonight. That was big, that was marking the night. So to make a nicer supper, to do something, give extra charity, to do something to say, oh, these are special days, and especially to be joyous. To be joyous in our relationship with God, to be joyous in God's salvation, to be joyous that we're so blessed to be Jews, and to be Jews that know God and are close to him. And that should be a perpetual source of joy. So that's why it's really nice to have a class tonight, because this is how you tap into that source of joy, your connection to God, by learning more about him and about serving him. So we are still in chapter 27. And we were discussing last class how enormously special it is to have these opportunities of this flickering negative energy inside of us, so we can crush it, so we can not go there, because we give God this enormous gift by our crushing the evil inside of ourselves, by our not indulging in the negative emotions and the negative thoughts. And this is an enormous gift that gives God, we said, the greatest nachas, the greatest pleasure. His child, us, we're giving him this huge gift, the greatest elevation. We are giving God the ability to crush evil in this world. As per the evil we crush in our lives, that permits him, gives him the green light to crush evil in the world. So when we have those moments of temptation, those moments of challenge, instead of being like frustrated, I don't get why I'm still stuck with this, it's like rejoice, which is a good thing to do on Adar and on Purim Katan and Shushan Purim Katan. Rejoice. It's so good. I'm human. And I'm giving God such a great opportunity. As I crush the evil in me, he gets the best nachas gift. He gets the best elevation gift. He gets the gift of crushing evil in the world. Wow, this is a great moment. It's just like anytime if you can envision it, when you are working on something and you're really trying to overcome something, and then you get a challenge in that direction, you could be like, oh, great. I wanted to work on this. I wanted to prove myself in this area. I wanted to overcome this issue. So I'm so glad for this challenge. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, why do I have to go through this again? It's like, this is great for the moment. For today, this is great because I want to have an opportunity to practice my great resolutions. So in general, oh, wow, okay, I'm being challenged. Awesome. Look how much great mileage God is going to get out of my challenges. So that's what we were discussing for the past 2 weeks. So now we're going to continue on this theme. And the Rebbe now is actually about to answer the last remaining question we have from chapter 1 of Tanya. Meaning, the first chapter of Tanya raised many questions. And very gradually, the Alter Rebbe answered them. Most of the questions he finished answering by chapter 14 of Tanya. There was one that he still didn't answer, and he's answering it right now. So this is the last question. Now, all of our questions from chapter 1 are answered. So what was this question? So the Rebbe says, oh, now I understand what Eov was Job, what he meant when he said, God, you created the wicked. So I'll get a little background to remember the story from chapter 1. It was a while ago. We go very leisurely, probably about 2 years ago, to remember it was pre-corona, it was more than 2 years ago, to remember the question, to remember our question on it, and to remember 50% of the answer that we already got like a long time ago, about 12 chapters ago. So Eov, you might know the story of Eov, of Job. He was a very, very, very righteous person. There's various opinions in the sages on the, if you will, authenticity of the story of Eov. Some say it happened in the times of Abraham, a very, very righteous, obviously Gentile, who literally went through all this. Some say it happened during the times of Moshe. That seems to be the opinion Rashi follows, based on a comment Rashi gives in the Torah. That he was a very, very, very righteous Gentile that actually lived in Israel around the time when the Jews left Egypt, because he passed away. No, I'm sorry. He passed away probably around the time the Jews left Egypt, because he had just passed away before Moshe sent the spies, which was like the second year, about a year after they left Egypt. A year? About a year, yeah. So a little more than a year. So Eov passed away a bit before then, like shortly before then. He probably passed away around roughly the time the Jews left Egypt. So he was a very, 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 very great non-Jew who lived in Israel. And he was actually so great that his merit protected all the other people that lived in Israel. And that's why he passed away shortly before the Jews were supposed to come and conquer Israel. There's a third version of the Talmud that actually is all a metaphor. There actually never was such a person. Again, that's not that this is fake news here. No, this is a real book of the scriptures. This is one of the 24 books of Torah. And its purpose is to teach us this very profound lesson that's found in the book of Eov, in the book of Job. In any case, if you know the story, Eov starts off, great life, very wealthy, 10 amazing sons, tremendously healthy, all is great, and serving God beautifully. And the force of evil says, well, of course he serves you beautifully. He's got everything going for him. Take it away, God, and see what will happen. So God said, I know Job. He's going to stick with me. And God took it all away. And the majority, that's all happens like chapter 1 fast. And the majority of the book is 3 friends of Job, of Eov, coming to comfort him. And at the end of this book, God comes to talk to him. And having this conversation with God, Eov said it was all worth it. To have this type of relationship with God, to have God come and talk to me, I accept it all. Which means he passed the test, and therefore he was cured of this horrific illness he had, and his wealth was restored, and he had more children. In his conversation with God, in the book of Eov, it's written that Eov, Job, said to God, God, you create the wicked, you create the righteous. Barasa tzadikim, barasa rishon. Now, God didn't say, no, I don't. What are you talking about? So based on that, we assume it's a true statement. You know, if you're talking to God and God doesn't dispute, that means it's true. So God truly, as Eov said, creates the wicked, creates the righteous, and creates the wicked. Our question on that, which is actually the Talmud's question on that we raised in chapter 1 of Tanya, is, what do you mean God creates the wicked, God creates the righteous? Our sages clearly say, Hakol b'yedei shamayim, chutz b'yireh shamayim, which means everything is in the hand of heaven except fear of heaven. Meaning, you can't choose what you're going to look like. You can't choose your socioeconomic status. You can't choose where you're going to live. You can't choose. But there's one thing you choose: how well you're going to serve God. Everything is in the hands of heaven except fear of heaven. That's in your hands. So what's Eov, Job here saying? God, you create the righteous, you create the wicked. We choose to be righteous or wicked. That was what the Alter Rebbe raised in chapter 1 of this work of Tanya. And this was obviously brought as a proof text, as a support that we don't really understand the terms righteous and wicked, because clearly we have free choice. And clearly Eov is correct. God creates the righteous and the wicked. So obviously our choice to be good doesn't equate us with being righteous. And our choice to be bad doesn't equate us with wicked. So we don't know what righteous and wicked mean, which is the point of the Alter Rebbe in chapter 1 of Tanya. But we did raise those questions. What did Eov mean if we do have free choice? What did he mean by saying, God, you create the righteous, you create the wicked? So a long time ago, many, many chapters ago, we answered half of this. What does Eov mean by saying, God, you create the righteous? And we explained that actually, yeah, that's exactly what happens. In classical Tanya thought, a regular Jew does not have the sole power to be a tzaddik, to be absolutely perfectly righteous. Now, a regular Jew can be absolutely perfect in everything he does, says, and thinks, but that's not yet a tzaddik. A tzaddik is far greater than that, because the tzaddik actually destroys his own inner evil. And that's not in the sole capacity of most Jews. Only certain select ones that God creates. So God truly creates the righteous, but that does not take away from me the opportunity to be perfect in everything I do, think, and speak. Because I could do all that and not yet be considered a tzaddik. the Rebbe in our generation says that every Jew can be a tzaddik, as the Tanya explains at tzaddik. So we all have the capacity not only to be absolutely perfect in everything we think, say, and do, but actually to destroy our own inner evil as well. So in case you're feeling gypped and shortchanged, fear not. You today can be the tzaddik. But that's what Eve meant when he said, you create the tzaddik. God, you create the righteous. You choose those souls that are going to be tzaddik souls and the rest of us. But that was only half the phrase. What did he mean by you create the wicked? He creates us to be wicked. We have free choice and hopefully we won't fail. Okay, create the righteous we get, but what do you mean by create the wicked? So the Alter Rebbe right now answers that. And this is concluding all of our questions from chapter 1, in case it was bothering anyone in the back of their heads. Now we conclude all of those questions. And this is what Eve meant when he said, God, you create the wicked. Not God forbid that he actually creates people and says, righteous, 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 wicked, wicked, wicked. No, God's not selecting any of us to be wicked. Ella only but he creates the tzaddik mold and the everyone else mold, which we're calling here the wicked, because for everyone else, that's the aspiring Benoni, the aspiring absolutely perfect in everything you do, say, and think, you still have a connection to that wicked energy because it still attacks you. It reaches you like the deeds of the wicked. In the realm of your thoughts. Meaning, the Alter Rebbe here is addressing himself to the Benoni. This book, this work, what we're all supposed to become, are Benonim. Now, Benonim never sin. That is our potential in classical Tanya. Never mind nowadays, our potential is to be the tzaddik. But in classical Tanya, written, way over 200 years ago, deep in the goalless energy, the energy of exile, we all still have the potential to be a Benoni, to never sin in what we do, what we say, what we think. But we will be tempted. It will reach you. It will come to you like the deeds of the wicked. So why is this Benoni of our chapter, who never sins, why is it reaching him like the deeds of the wicked? Because in the inner dynamics of his soul, he, and the person who truly sins, is not so different. The person who's truly wicked, which means someone who truly transgresses, who truly sins, he's attacked by his evil inclination and succumbs. And the Benoni of our chapter is attacked by his evil inclination and doesn't succumb. That's the minor difference between the two. They're both attacked. They both have a lot of the same energy going on the inside. It's a difference in how they process that attack and how they handle it. In other words, like sometimes you look at people and you're like, oh my gosh, oh, her, oh, she has it all together. Oh, no, I don't even relate to her. She's got it so together. Truth, this might not be true at all. She might have it as not together as you have it, but she does a better job handling the stress. She covers it over better. She pulls it together better. But it doesn't mean she doesn't have those challenges. It just means she's handling them better. But she could be as challenged. And similarly, you could look at someone and say, oh my gosh, they're so holy. They don't even know from my struggles. Maybe absolutely not. Maybe they know exactly from your struggles. Maybe your struggles and their struggles are the same struggles. They don't give in as often. They have more tools, better self-control, stronger resources, better support system. But struggles, they understand your struggles very intimately. They have them as well. Sometimes you look at other people's children and you're like, wow, my children would never be like that. We're a different breed. And maybe you are a different breed. Or maybe not. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here. Job meant when he said, God, you created the righteous. You created those people whose soul energy has the potential to be a tzaddik, to be so perfect, not only everything he does, thinks, and says, but in his own inner struggles, that perfect. And You create the wicked. You create everyone else, the potential Benoni, who hopefully has fulfilled his mission and is a Benoni. And he's still called the wicked because in his inner soul journey, he's still grappling with evil. That's the commonality between the Benoni and the one who truly sins. They're both struggling. And that's the point of the Rebbe in this chapter. You're struggling. Rejoice in your struggles. Don't feel bad about your struggles. Don't reject your struggles. Don't be ashamed of your struggles. Rejoice in your struggles. That's how you uniquely are serving God. And this person, who could be a Benoni, is struggling all of his days to not think, to remove his mind from these thoughts that are so much trying to grip at his brain. To crush the evil inside of him. But this person, though he always wins, but he cannot remove the inner evil. Because he doesn't have the soul power for it. Because that is only the domain of the perfectly righteous, of the tzaddik. So what the Rebbe here is explaining to you is, so what's the difference between the tzaddik and the Benoni? Why are we wondering, if you remember the point of this chapter? This is a frustrated Benoni. This is a Benoni who never sins in what he does, or what he says, or what he thinks. And he's so frustrated. Why is he still struggling? Why is he still challenged? Why isn't he just like the tzaddik? And the Rebbe says, because you're not. Because you don't have that soul capacity. And fear not. It's a great gift to God that you're not a tzaddik. Because you could do for God what a tzaddik can't. Because the tzaddik's never struggling. Yeah, that's what I want to be. No, but since the tzaddik's never struggling, he can't give God the gift of his struggles. You are struggling. You can give God those gifts, as we said, the gift of that tremendous nachas God has when you overcome, the tremendous ascension God receives when you overcome, and the ability to crush evil in the world. Imagine that tzaddik can't help God crush evil in the world. Me, I can help God crush evil in the world because I have evil and I have to crush it. And when I crush my evil, God now has the ability to crush evil in the world. I can give God that gift. I can give the world that gift. I can give myself that gift. So what Edom is basically saying is, he's talking about all people, let's say all Jewish people. Barasa tzaddikim, you created those super righteous that are born with a capacity to be that tzaddik superhero. Barasa Rasham, you create the evil. You create everyone else who, even if they're not sinning, they're still evil-like, that they have to grapple with evil. And that's our journey. We have to grapple with evil. And now the Rebbe says, and it's a wonderful journey. And by God above, there are two types of pleasures. Am I giving God what the tzaddik? No, you're not. But you're giving God something wonderful. One, from the complete nullification of evil. There's transformation of the bitter to the sweet. Transformation of darkness to light. And that's not what we do. That's what the tzaddik does. That tzaddik, that person who has removed or almost completely removed the evil inside of him, takes the klipa of this world. This world, just a little reminder background, is divided into three energy sources. That which we call kedusha. Kedusha means godliness. And that energy source is what's vivifying anything of pure godliness in this world, like your soul. The energy channel we call klipas noiga, which is vivifying all things permissible of this world, not innately evil, not innately godly, permissible, like this piece of paper, or this printer, or this roll of toilet paper. Don't ask why it's here. And then klipas tmeos, that third channel, vivifying things that are evil, meaning completely forbidden, like a pig, like words of gossip, like words that are lies, like a mixture of wool and linen, like something not kosher. Well, what's evil about, a fruit that was picked, only in her first year? Because God said no. That's the definition of evil. Because God said no, or because the rabbi said no? Because God also gave the rabbis the ability to say no and move something to receive its energy from this third channel of absolute impurity, we cannot elevate it, except in very, very unusual situations. So the tzaddik takes dark and makes it light, takes bitter and makes it sweet, which means he takes that intermediate channel, klipas noya, the permissible, like the paper of this world. It's not a mitzvah, it's not a commandment, it's not an avera, it's not a transgression, it's not something godly, it's not something evil, it's a piece of paper. But he takes this paper and the tzaddik can use it and make it godliness. So the darkness, because this is a klipa means a barrier on God's energy. So it's dark, it becomes light. It's bitter, it's a klipa, it's a barrier, it becomes sweet. The tzaddik gives God sweetness. That's the tzaddik avodah, the transformation of klipas noiga to kedusha, things permissible to things viewed as godly. Why is the tzaddik not giving God the forbidden? Because the tzaddik has nothing to do with the forbidden. He's not touching the forbidden. It's got nothing to do with his repertoire. He doesn't sin. He's not challenged. It's not in his arsenal. But the permissible he can use and so transform it in his service that he literally gives God a gift of it as holiness. And what about the rest of us? The hashenis and the second avodah, kad iskafia sitra achra. When the evil is crushed, but while she's still in her strength, she exalts herself like the eagle, the highest flying of all birds. And from that high level of I'm so big, I rule the skies, God draws her down. When the Beinonim, when we do our job properly, God can pull that eagle of evil, that high flying, I'm supreme above all evil, it's nothing. And God could deflate it. It's all gone. When we crush the evil in ourselves, which is what we've been discussing in this chapter. And this is what the verse says. Now this verse, make for me delicacies like I love, is literally in the scriptures in Torah. Yitzchak, Isaac, said it to Esau, assuming he was, said no, to Esau, knowing he was Esau. Make for me delicacies. Make for me delicious things. Make for me the things I love. Things in plural. Delicacies in plural. But on a Kabbalistic level, this is God talking to the Jewish people, talking to the source of the souls of the Jewish people, and saying, Jewish souls, give me what I love. I love two things. I want both from you. What do I want from you? What do I enjoy? What's my pleasure? So the Rebbe explained, Mat'amim lashon rabim, these delicacies are in the plural, because from the two different, very delicious things that God really enjoys. Shnei mine nachas ruach. God has two types of pleasure. This is God in the attribute of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence, talking to her child, talking to us, talking to the souls of the Jewish people. As is explained in the Zohar, in Tikkunei Zohar. So what are these delicious foods that God is craving? Just like in the human realm of really delicious food, there's two different types of foods that really give pleasure. We're familiar with both, I'm sure. One is from foods that are sweet, sweet tooth. You know, the chocolate, the candy, the sugar, the gummy bears, the cake, all that good stuff of the world. But there's also another pleasure. From things that are sharp or sour. We like things that are sharp. We like things that are sour. Yeah, we do. It also tastes good to us in a very different way. They're very well prepared. They're very well spiced. until they also become something really delicious to restore the soul. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining, based on this Kabbalistic concept behind the statement of Isaac, of Yitzchak, make for me these two types of delicious foods. Two types? Yeah, there's two things that God really enjoys. Well, let's put it on the human plane. We're women, we're talking about as food. All the sweets and all the sours. And both give us pleasure in a very different way. And the Rebbe is saying that when someone's a tzaddik, when someone's so godly that they've conquered and transformed the evil inside them and therefore in the world, they're giving God sugar and it tastes good. And when someone's an aspiring Benoni, they're taking the evil and they're crushing it. And that's like the joy of a really good sour pickle, of chatzilim, of something that it's not sweet, but it's very pleasurable in its sour or sharp or spicy way. So how do you understand that for ourselves? What do you think the Alter Rebbe means? How are we spicing the evil to make it something delicious and enjoyable for God? Meaning that tzaddik takes the evil. He takes klipas noiga, he takes the paper or the book or what do I have here? The yoga block. And he transforms it to something sweet. He transforms it to godliness. That's sweet. That tastes so good. And the Benoni can't take the evil and make it godly. But he could take the evil and crush it, and then it becomes like a pickle. It's a cucumber, but it tastes so good because you soaked it so well, because you spiced it so well, because you treated it, you knew exactly how to spice it and make it, it sat and it fermented and all the great stuff it's supposed to do till it becomes something that was really enjoyable. So what does that have to do with us? What are we doing to the evil of this world? We're not making it godly. It started evil, and when I'm done, it's still evil. So why does it now taste so good to God? What do you think is the spice that the Rebbe means here? Any thoughts on this? How are we seasoning the evil? What are we seasoning it with? When we stay away from doing wrong, yes, that's what we're doing. But what spice are we giving to the evil that's comparable? The Rebbe says, if you take an eggplant, sorry for those people that love eggplant in its native state, but for the rest of us, you take an eggplant, it's not giving you so much pleasure. But if you do this to it and do this to it and do this to it, it doesn't end up being sweet. But it tastes good in a savory, sour, spicy, sharp way. It gives us a pleasure because we spiced it appropriately. We didn't make it sugar. We didn't make it sweet, but we spiced it well. So again, the tzaddik takes evil, klipas noiga style evil, permissible but not innately godly, and he moves it to godliness. He takes dark, he makes it light. He takes bitter, evil, bitter, klipa, concealment on God's energy, bitter, and he makes it sweet. He makes it revealed godliness. We don't do that. He starts off with evil, he makes it godly. We start off with evil and it ends up evil. We don't shift it to godliness generally. But we don't give into it. We're talking about when we're doing it right. We crush it. We don't allow ourselves to give into it. So we took evil and it was still evil at the end of the day, but it's now spiced. What is it seasoned with? What are you doing for God when you are tempted to lose it with your husband and you control yourself and don't? So you just crushed an evil. That's amazing. What gift did you give God right now?
How about self-nullification?
So you gave God the gift of your self-nullification. So that is the spice that's giving God this pleasure. That is how you are spicing, seasoning the evil. Again, a tzaddik takes evil, he makes it delicious. He makes it sweet. He makes it candy. He made it godliness. I'm struggling with evil. When I'm done, it's still evil. But it's evil spiced, Hava said, with my self-nullification. Spiced with my efforts. Spiced with my sweat. Spiced with my straining myself to control myself. That's all what's seasoning and spicing and making savory and delicious and appetizing and appealing these things that innately were evil and are still evil, but now they're really appealing because it's seasoned, as Hava said, with my self-nullification. It's seasoned with all those efforts, with my sweat, with my efforts. That's what's seasoning this. So can you think of something you've given to God like a pickle? When you've struggled with something and you might not say you changed it at all, but you gave God that gift of your efforts with it. That's the appealing spice. The investment you're putting in, as Hava said, to nullify yourself to him, to listen to him, to not give into your native tendencies that might not always be so pretty and nice, and to let his rule, his will rule. Let his will be expressed through you. That's humongous effort sometimes. We know that. And God knows it. And it's very, very appealing to God. All of your efforts, all of your sweat. So sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, why is it so hard for me? Maybe you just have a very big portion of pleasure that you're destined to give to God. Maybe you have a very big share of this ability to give God something that he really, really appreciates, which is all of your efforts seasoning the evil in this world. So can someone think of a personal experience like this? When they gave God like a pickle, when they gave God something that was just very much seasoned with their efforts, with their sweat, with their efforts. I will call on someone. The threat. Lisa.
I would say when you are not patient, but you're working on your patience, and a situation arises and you squelch the automatic outbursts that would normally come, and instead you remain patient.
Or you fake it.
Yeah. Or you keep quiet and don't say a word. Or you just switch it so that whatever comes out of your mouth is sweet and kind instead of cruel and nasty.
Beautiful. I hear that one. I can very much relate. So you just gave God a pickle. Why did you give God a pickle? Because nothing here was what was godly. What was godly was the gift of not giving in to the evil, of not giving in to the impatience, of not letting it flare. And as Lisa said, saying something really nasty or cruel or put down or demeaning, denigrating. No, you kept your mouth shut, or you said something sweet. That was the pickle you gave to God. Great example. Yehudis, do you have one for us?
There's so many. I feel like we're like busy with this all day.
God, here's another one. Here's another pickle. Here's another pickle.
I was thinking like, even like, when we speak to people too, like sometimes we could be judgmental and like to just hold that back and create space for people to be who they are and for the truth to be there and to see their good and to look, to switch that to in our mind to really, turn it around because it's so many times where people can present with all kinds of things that you can't, it's not their essence. So instead of responding to the stuff, holding ourselves back and allowing for what the truth is and seeing the godly. And I mean, this with our kids, it's with people. There's so many times.
I think what you're saying is so true. And I think it's interesting that you and Lisa both, you gave very different examples, but in the end, a lot of it comes down to speech. Of course, not judging is also perspective, as is impatience a perspective, but both impatience versus patience, not judging versus judging, a lot, maybe it's just because we're women, but we have so many arenas of challenge in just like every word we say. And like you just said, we could dish out this Hatzilim all day long. We could give God these pickles all day long because we are always challenged. We're always challenged. We're challenged from just being blah to saying, no, it's Adar, it's Purim Katan, it's Shushan Purim Katan. We're going to be happy. You could have had that challenge all day long, maybe. I'm going to be optimistic and positive instead of just normal and like blah. It's a challenge. So Yodis is right. Every moment of our day, we have more and more opportunities. Just like a tzaddik, every moment of his day, he also can churn out the sugar, can churn out the candies, can churn out the cake all day long as he interfaces with the permissible of this world and makes them godly and makes them godly and makes them godly, right? This is a godly production factory. That's what the tzaddik's doing. And we're the pickle production factory. We're seasoning the evil of this world and making it palatable and appealing and enticing by our sweat, by our efforts, by our nullification. We're nullifying ourselves to God all day long. So think of all the pleasure we're giving God all day long with these efforts. And this is what the verse means when it says, Kol pa'al Hashem l'ma'anehu, everything God did for his sake. V'gam rasha liyom ra'ah, and also the evil for the day of his evil, which is like, what? The first half of the verse is talking about the righteous. Kol pa'al Hashem l'ma'anehu, all God did for his sake. That's the righteous doing for the sake of God. Yeah, that works. The second half, v'gam rasha, and also the evil. The evil is helping God. Liyom ra'ah, for the day bad. Also the evil, the ones that have a connection to evil, us. Liyom ra'ah, when we take bad and make it day. We're taking the evil and making it shine and luminous like day by how we're seasoning it, by how we're dressing it, by how we're making it so appealing to God. The stuff that's still evil. When I finished working at this, it's still evil. I didn't make it godly. But I drenched it with my sweat. And that made it very appealing to God. Perush means to say, Sheyashav be'risha, when a person stops his evil, when he's not doing anything wrong. And his evil becomes like day, like light, above, not in this world it's still evil. But above it's luminous, above it's shining. When when evil is crushed below by us, by not letting ourselves be or act or feel impatient, not letting ourselves be or act or feel judgmental. And then the glory of God is elevated far, far above. So just as we said before, when we do this work, this gives such a boost to God himself. This allows God to ascend so high on the wings of my efforts. So how do you feel envisioning your work as pickles and the tzaddiks as cake? How does that make you feel? Gina, how
Hungry.
does that make you feel? Dina, I don't know, someone started talking, but I didn't hear who it was. Someone did start talking. Who was that person that saved Dina? Someone started talking. Who was it? All right, Dina, we're back to you. Dina, how do you feel envisioning your work as pickles and the tzaddiks as cake?
I envision that there's a lot of work ahead of me.
This explains why I always crave sweets.
We crave what we don't have.
Some of us.
So we have a lot of work. We're really important people. That's definitely one strong takeaway from this chapter is we have a lot of work. We're very important. God needs our work. How do you feel? How do you process that? What do you take as the message the Rebbe, or how do you process the Rebbe's message that you're giving God the pickles and tzaddik is giving God the cake?
I don't know. I guess I would approach all of that with a great sense of humility.
Humility, who am I to give God such gifts? Humility, am I doing it properly?
Yeah, all of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a true introspective thought. Here I have this ability to give God all this pleasure. Am I?
But I think we're also like the problem child. So, you know, sometimes if you have a problem child, you really want to help your child. You're constantly thinking about them. You love them. Like you have a special place in your heart and way for them.
You're God's
Because
problem child. So you
Yeah,
have a special,
like-
you have a special love for your children that are weaker. So we're that weaker child, and God has a special love for us.
yeah, I think that, I mean, it's not exactly so much the pickle, but like
It could be.
that's how I feel it.
That's how you
like
feel.
we are
Like,
so
like
special.
God saying, okay, you know, you're not as capable as a tzaddik, but like I have a lot of love for you because I'm aware of your limitations and you're still trying so hard.
Yes.
Anyone else? Any other, how they interface with this information? Any other people's perspective on envisioning their work as giving God the pickles? Envisioning the tzaddik as giving God the chocolate?
So the only thing is association.
Okay.
Cake has a lot of sugar and it's not good for you if you have too much cake. But a pickle actually is very good for your health.
Oh, all that salt is good for you. That's good to know. Chava,
Pickle is much better than
pickle's
cake.
much better than cake. So that's a very interesting thought because what Chava is saying is true. I wonder how we play that out. Meaning a tzaddik gives God sweetness. We're talking here, we're using food as the analogy. Obviously, there has to be a relationship here. So if it's sugar, if it's candy, if it's chocolate, if it's cake, and we take all these healthy vegetables and we spice them so you want to eat them. So that would sort of imply, Chava, that what we're doing long-term healthier, better for God than what the tzaddik's doing.
Absolutely. That's my only association with this.
No, I don't think you're wrong. And I don't think like that Alter Rebbe, messed up there. I mean, what he's saying is very precise and it's a spiritual truth. And what you're saying is so true. And it maybe we can speculate because in the end of the day, this is what God needs. So when Fruma was saying about you have a deeper feeling for your weaker child, and my thought was that, well, this is the majority of us. I'm sure over 95% of the Jewish people, and probably more percentage, are not innate tzaddik material or are not generally taking evil and making it godly. But we are, as Yehuda said, all day long crushing evil. So there must be a reason for that. There must be a reason that proportionately, numbers wise, there's a lot more pickles being produced than there is cake. So you're saying, yeah, pickles are a lot healthier for you. God needs pickles more than he needs cake. But I'm thinking, I mean, there must be a point to that. There must truly be a need that God has for our work in a far greater quantitative measure than the tzaddiks, because that's how God set up the system. There's a lot more people, a high majority of the Jews, if they're truly serving God, this is what they're giving him. And the tzaddik that serves God and gives the cake and the sugar, it is a rare delicacy. He is eating it sparingly because there's not that many tzaddikim around. So it's just interesting what you're saying, because that sort of like maybe shows us why God did it this way. You know, why proportionately he gets a lot more vegetables than he gets dessert. That's very interesting. It's interesting how everyone looks at it differently. What I was thinking, which isn't what anyone else was thinking, but that's fine. What everyone said was great. I was thinking, wow, this is so wonderful, because, you know, you could think, what am I doing already? We might have that like little voice of evil inclination. What did I do today? What did I accomplish today? Think of how many pickles you produced for God today. Think of how many times you were tempted to do the wrong thing and didn't give in, like Yehuda said, all day long. I don't think she was exaggerating at all. And I thought, it's like, wow, the Alter Rebbe was saying, you're making delicacies. You're making delicious stuff. You look at the tzaddik and you know he's really working hard and he's really doing enormous things for God. He's making one part of the meal. You're making another part of the meal. As Chava said, you're making the more foundational part of the meal. And that means your day was very meaningful. You did so much good today. You created so much pleasure for God today. You gave God such ascension today. You enabled God to crush so much evil in this world today. Every time you got in a bad mood and didn't let yourself stay in it, imagine what evil is crushed in the world because you crushed it in yourself, because you said, no, I'm going to be happy. It's Purim Katan. It's a great day. Imagine what happened in the world, what gift you gave to God. Like, to me, it was a very uplifting thought to sort of compare and say, this is a pleasure, this is a pleasure, this is a delicacy, this is a delicacy, this tastes great, this tastes great. So you're giving God amazing stuff. I'm no tzaddik. Alter says, yeah, I know. That's why you're giving God this amazing stuff, and the tzaddik's giving God that amazing stuff. But you're both giving God amazing stuff. You're both giving God things that he really likes, craves, and needs. As we're explaining in this paragraph, he needs your work, because through your work, he ascends like nothing else. Like none of that sugar is going to help him ascend. And through your work, he crushes evil in this world. Like none of that sugar enables him to crush evil, not one drop. None of that enables evil to be crushed. What I do enables a lot of evil to be crushed. So, wow, that's so amazing. Me and the tzaddik, and we're just put here on like equal status. This type of pleasure, this type of pleasure. So that's how I was processing it. But I think what everyone said was really good and really helped. Okay, we will stop at this point. We are up to discussing a different type of crushing we can do, different than everything we've said thus far in the chapter. So to be continued next week, when I assume we will actually finish this chapter. As I told you, it's one of my favorite, meaning I think it really has such practical relevance to all of our lives and how we envision our work all day long, as Yehuda said, all day long. All right, does someone have something they would like to share? As we said, it's wonderful energy today, wonderful good things in the world. So if someone has something they're big or small they would like to thank God for.
I want to thank you for the wonderful class.
I'll take it.
Especially on such a special day. It was very uplifting and inspiring. So thank you very much.
Thank you for attending.
Also being
From
able
Chicago.
to still on Zoom and to enjoy it is we really should appreciate the fact that it's possible these days. It's not the same as meeting in person, but it's certainly very helpful to be able to enjoy and learn.
Baruch Hashem, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have something else they would like to thank God for? Could be something small, could be something big.
I'm thankful for so much, but specifically because today's Purim Katan, I had a moment today where I was triggered and I had to fight against that trigger and be patient and kind through it. And I was able to do it. So I'm very grateful for that. And I have to figure out a way to help this person through the triggers that I have. So I'm doing that, and I'm really thankful that I have the strength to be able to do that.
Amen. And look at how much you created for God today. Anyone else? Purim Katan. Good energy today. Nice things happen for sure.
I have the same thing to share. I had a situation that I could be very upset, and I chose not to. And that's give me a good feeling, and I hope that was a gift to God.
It was a gift to God. That's what we're learning this whole chapter. So you gave God something he really, really, really appreciates. You and Firma gave God big gifts today. And I'm grateful because my car's been making funny noises forever. And I took it to the mechanic. Of course, when you take it to the mechanic, it doesn't make any funny noises. It's like going to the doctor, sort of. And the mechanic said, no, your car is perfectly fine. I'm like, it's fine. He said, listen, if I said something was wrong, I'd be making money off you. I'm telling you, it's fine. So I was grateful to hear that my car was fine. And another little thing, but we should say thank God for the big and the little. I have like 3 freezers in my house, and they're all totally stuffed to the utmost because I've been every week I make challahs and I freeze them for my son who lives in Springfield, so his wife can take, so he can give his wife a gift and she doesn't have to make challahs for her many guests and many different things she does with challahs every week in Springfield. And we get to this point of like, oh, oversaturation. We have not one drop of space in our freezer. And then it lasts that way for a few weeks. And I hear the happy news that tonight someone's coming and emptying out all 3 of my freezers. So that was a very nice little Purim Katan gift. So we appreciate the big and we appreciate the little. So thank you so much for the sharing. We're going to do now the Basuras HaGeula. This is the last. So this was from the Rebbe's talk of this week's Torah portion in 1992, 30 years ago. In this generation of ours, the last generation of exile and the first generation of redemption, after everything, the enormity of deeds of all Jews of all generations of all years, for now we've completed everything, the last refinements, Rebbe said 30 years ago. And now the main emphasis is on the completion, to bring the gimel of geula, of the complete and absolute redemption in actuality. So this is the last talk we heard from the Rebbe that the Rebbe personally edited. There was one more week of talks that did not get completely edited by the Rebbe. But this was the last one, and this one they're not quoting this, but there's to me, very strong piece, very relevant, considering the timing that this was the last edited talk, completely edited talk we have of the Rebbe, where the Rebbe was speaking about the whole idea of the descent. You know, this week is a Torah portion of the sin of the golden calf. And the Rebbe says that sometimes it looks like we're going through a period of descent. But that really is illusionary because a Jew doesn't ever descend. Every seeming descent is really part of an ascent. We never really go down. Going down is just like building up the momentum of an upward movement. So the down is also part of the up. So sometimes it looks like we're in a down, but we're not. It's illusionary, it's temporary, it's short-lived. And sometimes Rebbe says there's concealments, there's barriers. Seems like we're very far. It seems like we don't see God. It seems like we're in a very dark space. And the Rebbe says we have to remember the verse that says, Rega katon azaftich. I'm leaving you is for a short moment. And the Rebbe says it's not really leaving, even that short moment. It's completely illusionary because God never leaves us. We're never alone. And the temporary illusion of being alone is very, very short-lived. So when we're going through it, we should have in mind there's no descent for the Jew. It's the verse, the phrase says, we go down to go up. The Rebbe in this talk took it a step further and says, no, we never go down. What looks like going down, it's also part of the upward movement. This was very, very powerful and very relevant considering the timing of this talk as something to give us strength for a long, long time. Concealments are illusionary, concealments are temporary. There's no going down. We're never going down. It's part of going up and getting closer and closer and closer to the point and purpose of it all, as the Rebbe says, the gimel of Geula, the absolute complete redemption, which we should have now and which tonight's learning should definitely help make it happen. Thank you so much for joining. Such a special night, such special energy. Try to eat something special.
Thank you very much.
Right? That's what the Ramah quoted. Tov lev mishta tamid. Good-hearted people are always partying. In Hebrew, they have an expression, siba la misiba. There's always a reason to party. So tonight, tomorrow, plenty of reasons to party, plenty of reasons to enjoy, and to just be so grateful for our lives, for our blessed lives, for our Jewish lives, for our connection to God, for our connection to redemption. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.